Today, we have a very special person that our nominating committee has decided should be our peace builder for the year, because that definitely is what Sean is, Sean Sheppard. And I would like to just announce that there's a booklet that goes out for the Pathways to Peace training. Now, I found a line in there that absolutely tells you what this young man is about. And it's right here. It says he's helping to create a culture that promotes activities that lead to peace, understanding, and cooperation. So, Sean, would you please come on up? And that's what I was going to ask, but everybody help me welcome him. And he's trying to get his information squared away there. We need Jeff. Jeff, you need to come up, because the nominating committee had 7 people to choose from that you all contributed. It was not easy to make the selection, but we did. And 2 people nominated Sean, which is kind of nice. So both of them are going to be in this presentation today. And we're going to start with Jeff.
Good morning. Good morning. I've known Sean for 20 plus years now. Unfortunately. Yeah. And probably for you. He approached me with this idea that he had to get more involved in the community, make more of an impact, because he didn't think that was being done to the extent that it could be in San Diego at the time. And this is probably mid to late 90s. And being young and materialistic, I was like, that's a great adventure for you. I think I'll pass, but I'll support you any way I can. And he's done wonderful, wonderful things. Just to give you a brief overview of what he's done over the past 24 years, he has been a behavior change model, nonprofit and community organizing, mobilizing, all in the process of being the founder of Embrace. Under Sean's leadership, Embrace has provided childhood obesity prevention and educational programming to hundreds of low-income middle school children, mobilized thousands of college student volunteers from diverse backgrounds to help both homeless civilians and veterans. He's recruited over 1,000 more members of the community and contractors to remodel 11 homes for disabled veterans. And that totals close to, over $750,000. So check this out. This is something else that's really impressive. In less than a year, Embrace's signature behavior change model, Game Changer, which you'll learn more about, has attracted the participation, partnership, and investment of over a dozen law enforcement entities on the local, state, and national levels. For over 15 months, Sean has spent approximately 360 hours with over 175 members of law enforcement, government, including chiefs, assistant chiefs, probation officers, sheriffs, lieutenants, sergeants, captains, judges, and elected officials, again on the local, state, national, the federal levels. Prior to serving to the community, Sean spent 2 years as the urban marketing consultant for the Padres, and the better part of the prior 10 years as a strength and conditioning coach at the collegiate level at various universities, such as San Diego State, Kansas State, Boston College, and just the Ohio State University. And at the Ohio State University, he ascended to the position of director of strength and conditioning, and that is in charge of the largest athletic department in the nation. And there, of all of those accomplishments, he's helped hundreds of student athletes reach their full potential athletically. And I think that's a remarkable achievement in and of itself. Sean has served or is serving on several boards, such as UCSD's Chancellor Advisory Board, San Diego Chief of Police African American Community Advisory Board, San Diego Somali Community Law Enforcement Roundtable, Advisory Council for the San Diego Foundation Center for Civic Engagement, and many, many more. Sean earned a BA at Georgetown in psychology and an MA at San Diego State sports psychology. Sean's from Brooklyn. You hear the accent? But he was raised in Jersey. My fellow Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud to present the 2018 Peacemaker Award to my good friend Sean Sheppard.
Inside San Diego sports. I'm Mike Pomerantz. This week, for our first story, we go off the field to look at how a sports-related program is fostering better relations between the San Diego Police Department and local citizens. It's called Game Changer, and it's living up to its name. Nearly all, if not all, police officers choose their line of work for the right reasons.
It is definitely a challenging time to be a police officer, but the reason why we go into police work is because we care. I mean, that hasn't changed.
But in some places, the perception of officers has shifted from trusted hero to villain.
The community members do have a real fear. I think that's been a common thing that people are just naturally afraid of police.
In 2015, San Diegan Sean Sheppard was inspired to help alleviate those negative perceptions of police officers.
Men that looked like me, who happened to be unarmed, were being killed. And I was distraught, frustrated, felt helpless, and after I was done doing my own personal venting, I shifted gears and really decided I'm going to do something. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to do something.
That something was a program that combines communication between police officers and civilians with an element of sports. City Councilman Chris Cate became a supporter. His father, godfather, and uncle were all CHP officers, and Cate is the chair of San Diego's Public Safety Committee.
Public safety is a shared responsibility. It can't just be all on the backs of police officers, it can't just be all on the backs of community members, but there really has to be that strong bond between the community and our police departments.
The big test was Chief Zimmerman.
Sheppard had met Chief Shelley Zimmerman years earlier. She attended The Ohio State University, and he had worked there as a strength and conditioning coach. Their common passion for Buckeye sports made them fast friends.
We go out to lunch, and he hits me with this idea called Game Changers. He says about bringing police and community members together, but doing it with sports. And I'm like, okay, I'm all in. This is exactly perfect, because I believe that sports really do bring people together.
We love the idea, and as I'm sure the chief told you, we jumped in with both feet. And my experience has been anytime people are talking, it's a good thing.
The program was underway. Its first meeting was December 12th of 2016 on the campus of San Diego State at KPBS. There, police officers and citizens discussed issues in a civil setting and then attended the SDSU basketball game that night to socialize. The Game Changer program was born. There would be more roundtable meetings with officers and the public, one before a San Diego Gulls game and even more before several Padres games.
You have to create these environments. Our country was not set up for us to integrate.
And I spent a lot of time trying to bring diverse communities together on our campus, but to see police officers and civilians or non-law enforcement people get together and just have a real conversation is groundbreaking.
All I do is talk to violent criminals all day. That's it. So whenever I talk to one person, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're normal. We can have a conversation. I can explain to you why I'm doing something and then just let you know. We don't get to normally interact with people in the community and talk to them on just normal terms.
You just get this raw conversation going. I think what everyone needs to learn on both spectrums, like police and community members, is that you can't take those negative experiences with you to the next experience.
Conversation can get passionate, heated, pointed.
That's not what we do, and that's not why any of us came into this profession. It's not like that. But if you can give me a good reason as to why same race, people are killing their own, I'm willing to hear it.
Army veteran Edwin Rivers has experienced homelessness. He says he was treated poorly by police for sleeping on the streets that he fought to keep free. Rivers recently received his college degree, and he has seen the bad and the good in police officers.
Sure, we're all prejudiced to a degree, but our premise here is racial profiling. And when you switch from being prejudiced to acting on that prejudiceness, that's racism. That's an actual act. And in order for a person to be racist, that's a conscious decision.
Sean knew that I would come in there and I wouldn't be afraid to speak my mind. I was frustrated and I wanted to be heard.
To be honest with you, I'm prejudiced towards young males I see walking around with sagging pants. It burns me up. Even my son. And we butt heads about it. Yes, that's a prejudice.
I thought it was interesting to hear the citizens from the community describe how they feel when they're contacted by a police officer.
The most impactful thing for me was meeting some of the people who sat at that table, who were PhDs, who were African American, telling us they were afraid of the police.
How many interactions have you had with the police since then?
Since 18?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or would you say most of them were negative, or was it split 50-50? What would you say?
60, 70, 30, negative.
70-30 negative, right. So that's where perceptions form, right? Profiling is based on statistics, right?
The discussions are not just critiques of police officers. The officers themselves share the challenges of their jobs.
People that usually get tickets or have all these equipment violations on the car, they're not fixed for a reason. And it's not going to get better by you sitting here and hurting your bank account. And it's not going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm sticking to this person. It's not going to make their situation better. It's going to raise that 70-30 to 80-20 now. It was just nice to be able to sit down and have a conversation about my job that wasn't with a family member or someone that just hates what I stand for.
It's a way to help to understand what someone's job is and also dispel some of the myths.
I understand that not all police are good, just like not all civilians are good, but it's at a point where we really need to have these discussions to make progress.
That's part of Game Changers, I think. We get to know officers on a more personal level, and we share this stuff, and maybe slowly we change that perception.
In the end, there's valuable honesty, communication, and learning for both officers and the public.
If you can communicate to someone and just take it a little slower and take the time out to say, hey, this is why I'm doing this, then it helps them to understand where you're coming from.
You were able to feel and see that they're people, just like you and me.
Good morning, everyone, and God bless each one of you. Before I speak, I just want to thank Jeff and Judy for thinking enough of the work that we do in the community to nominate me. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my assistant, Selena. There is no embrace, there is no game changer without her, and I also want to recognize. Yeah, I have a big mouth, so I don't really need this.
You do. Yeah, you do.
No, I don't. I'm trying to spare you my voice. Is this okay? Yeah.
You're on video, so it's better.
Oh, all right. Okay. So I also want to recognize the Assistant Chief of Probation, Chief Ruben Littlejohn, who's here. So I'll tell you a little bit about Game Changer. We first started this program because I knew that there needed to be a change in perception in order for there to be a change in behavior. And the only way that perceptions were going to change is if people came together on a regular basis and shared their honest experiences. And sometimes those conversations are difficult to have, but that's why growing pains are called growing pains. There is no growth without pain. So we first started with the San Diego Police Department, and as you can see, once different agencies heard about what we were doing, turned into all of that. We're working with 17 different law enforcement agencies on the local, state, and federal level, and we just came back from Ohio, the Ohio State University, and introduced Game Changer to the Columbus, Ohio community. And we are now about to go to Virginia Commonwealth in Richmond, Virginia, and there's some discussions in Minnesota having us come out to Minneapolis. Next slide. So these are the agencies that are here in town and out of town that have invested in the program, and we are grateful for every dime. And one thing that I need to point out is that these amounts of money that have been invested in the program wasn't budgeted for. So they heard about the program, we weren't in their budget, and they still decided that it was important enough to support the work that we're doing. So far, we've engaged with 164 members of law enforcement and 296 civilian participants, and that equals 460 Game Changer participants. And to my surprise, somehow we connected with Homeland Security, and they made it very clear to us that we're the only organization in the country that's doing the work that we're doing in terms of convening civilians and members of law enforcement to bring about more peaceful outcomes. So I wanted to share that with you. Next. Our most frequently discussed topics are trust, accountability, training, what to do when you're stopped by the police. 2 to 5%, I'll explain that in a second. Mental health among law enforcement officers, and cultural competence and use of force. 2 to 5%. We've identified through hundreds of hours of communicating that the problem inside law enforcement is not 98% of officers, it's 2%. Bad communities, it's not 98% of the community that's bad, it's 2%. We need to address the 2% across the board in our country. I mean, if you think about it, you go into any business, you don't have 100% of the employees are great employees. It's the 2% that need to go. And that's what we've learned through communicating, and we don't reach that conclusion without having some very difficult conversations. Next slide. So what takes place? It's not just law enforcement and someone like myself having a conversation. It's that, but it's also exposure to one another. So our events are filled with people from all different walks of life. We create an environment for you to get out of your political bubble, your cultural bubble, your religious bubble, and it's that type of exposure. So if you think back to Charlottesville and the horrors that unfolded there, we need to create environments for us to spend time with one another, not just us and law enforcement. And the education is the same way. Law enforcement is learning from us, we're learning from law enforcement, and that creates better understanding. And I want to make something clear, there is no peace without understanding. If we don't understand one another, there won't be any peace. And so that's what's taking place. It's educational in nature for everyone involved. And as the asterisk shows at the bottom, all the participants report that it's been extremely cathartic and therapeutic. We've had officers break down in describing mental health issues and how suicide is the #1 cause of death amongst law enforcement. It really can get very emotional, and at the same time, when you have officers opening up and being candid and being vulnerable, you connect. I have that in common too. I didn't know that you went through that. I'm going through that too. I didn't know that you see a therapist. I see a therapist too. You don't get to have those conversations when you're getting pulled over for a speeding ticket. Next slide, please. So, just to give you a snapshot of the data, the #1 problem as identified by both law enforcement and non-law enforcement people is communication. What's being said, how it's being said, or nothing is being said at all. So how are we supposed to have a healthy relationship if communication is the #1 problem, which, by the way, is the #1 cause of divorce, communication issues. The #2 problem is where we split. Community members that are non-law enforcement say that trust is the #2 problem, and law enforcement has identified training as the #2 problem. So not just their own training, but we are not trained either. The community needs to be trained as it relates to law enforcement and how we interact with one another. Next slide, please. So reported behavior changes. More balanced comments on social media. We all know, who's on social media? Okay, so if you really want to get a pulse of what's happening in this country, read an article and then read the comment section. It's ugly. It's very, very ugly. So just to have people change their behavior and what they're posting in social media, I think is a huge, huge change, unfortunately. And sharing new law enforcement knowledge with friends and family, I'm the type of person that if I stumble across a good thing, I want to share it with other people. Law enforcement participants have reported back that they're communicating more with citizens in between calls, which, as a human element, it's nice to know that you're more than just a uniform and a badge. Communicating more with citizens outside of their patrol cars. Walking the beat is a lost art in most cities. So get out of your car and say hello. Being more informative and communicative with citizens during stops. So why I'm stopping you. Not just driver's license registration, please. Let us know why we're having this contact. Next slide, please. So action items. I'm not going to go into these in detail, but out of all the events that we've had 36 events. These are the action items that are on the table for chiefs and city council to review for change. Standardizing traffic stop behavior, standardizing highway stop behavior. Who remembers in around 93 when there was an officer pulling women over and raping and killing them on the 15? That was an issue. Okay? That's not just an issue unique to San Diego, it's taking place around the country. So what do you do when it's late at night and you're getting pulled over on the freeway? Rights and responsibility cards, if you've been here in San Diego long enough, they used to be in circulation, they're no longer in circulation. Bias calls, these are certain types of 911 calls that law enforcement are receiving that they would rather not receive, and public disclosure of dismissals. Next slide, please. All right. Okay. So I just want to share with you very quickly exactly what Game Changer is. So 3 hours before the start of a collegiate or professional sporting event, we have about 15 members of the community, like us, and 5 members of law enforcement come together either at the Abbey Hotel or at Petco Park. And we have a moderated focus group. Dinner is served. Everyone is asked to complete a pre-perception survey because we want to know what your thoughts are before we even start. And we start with an icebreaker. What do you have in common? Get in small groups and start out with commonality. Then we have a conversation about problems. And if you know anything about living on this earth, we can talk about problems forever. But what's important after we're done talking about the problems is that we adjourn to a solution session. So each group, we get small groups, and we identify one problem, and you have a half hour, 40 minutes to discuss what are the solutions to this problem. When we're done with this focus group, we then go to the game together and spend human bonding time together. And that's when they take their post-perception survey to see if this experience has caused them to change how they think about any number of topics. Again, because if you don't change your thoughts, your behavior is not going to change. And in this case, we want more peaceful outcomes. And so that's what Game Changer is about. And that is why Judy and Jeff thought so highly of the work that we're doing to nominate us. And, you know, before I give the mic to Judy, I had a conversation with Jim Oveni. Where's Jim at? Well, he said he was going to leave too. That is work.
You leave with cookies?
No, he gave me cookies.
Okay, it's okay.
It's important that we're, especially with young people, that we share with them that, you know, we're all here and to some degree we've become successful either personally or professionally, but it's not always linear. Sometimes you have to take the scenic route like I did. And there was a point in time in my life where I literally got on my knees and asked God to take me from this world. And that was a time where I was not putting service before self. It was all about me. And I was miserable living a life all about me. And I asked God to either change my life or take my life. And I guess God decided to change my life. And it's important that we share with our young people. A lot of times we have juvenile probationers coming to these events and spending time with law enforcement other than getting arrested. It's very therapeutic for them. It's important that we share with our youth that we made mistakes to get to adulthood. We weren't perfect. They need to hear that. Because oftentimes adults look at kids and expect them, they feel like they're expected to be perfect. We're not, no one in this room is perfect. And so I wanted to close with that, to share that it's very important for us to be transparent and let our youth know, I made mistakes. It's okay for you to make mistakes. You gotta learn from your mistakes and get better from them. So I want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to share what we're doing in the community. The program is growing. It's not just something that's here in San Diego in a vacuum. It's needed. We need to spend more time with one another in order for us to achieve some measure of peace. So thank you.
So proud of you. So in addition to Sean being our Peacemaker this year, our club has the opportunity to start a new tradition. You're the first one to become a Paul Harris Fellow. And for some of you who might not know what a Paul Harris Fellow is, you saw Mike Hartnett get his Paul Harris Fellow this morning. I have kind of a detailed explanation, but in the interest of time, I'll make it kind of brief. But it's basically a Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for a substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. It's named for our Rotary's founder, Paul Harris. And we often designate somebody a Paul Harris Fellow as a tribute because their life demonstrates a shared purpose with the objectives of the Rotary Foundation. So today we have the honor and pleasure of recognizing you, Sean, as you become a Paul Harris Fellow. And with this recognition, peace and goodwill come closer to reality. So it's my great pleasure to present you with this pin, which is an emblem of appreciation given to a Paul Harris Fellow. Congratulations and sincere thanks for your commitment to the goals that we share, which are peace and world understanding. So congratulations.
Okay. Okay, we need to, okay, wait till she gets done. There we go.
Okay. Where are we looking?
Okay, right here.